There are few feelings in poker more euphoric than making a hero call against someone trying to bluff you. It strips the game down to its purest form, looking your opponent in the eye and saying, "I don't think you have it." Relying on nothing but your own intuition and brain power to make a call most people wouldn't have the guts to make, seeing something most people wouldn't have the capacity to see, and getting the instant gratification that your way of thinking and perceiving the situation was indeed correct. Making a hero call sends shockwaves throughout the rest of the table. Everyone stops what they're doing and their eyes get wide from the wonderment. You can liken a hero call to someone dunking in basketball. When you do it, everyone around you goes wild and admires your mastery and dedication to the craft. But when it happens to you, you are left to sit there in a stew of your own shame, eternally posterized with someone's nuts resting comfortably on your forehead for all to see, wondering where it all went so wrong. In today's video, I'm going to break down the keys to making the hero-iest of the hero calls, the king high call, so you can be the one with your nuts, or lady nuts, on someone's forehead. We will be breaking down this concept using a hand I played on Club GG, a poker app where you can qualify for all sorts of real money tournaments all over the world for just $50 a month. I know that sounded like an ad, but unfortunately I am not sponsored by them. Yet. I don't want to mislead anyone. For full transparency's sake, the context of this particular hand comes from the previously mentioned Club GG, where everyone is playing for a monthly fee and for tickets that can be used to enter tournaments where you win, air quote, tournament dollars, and air quote, that can be used to enter real money tournaments. This particular tournament doesn't have a cash buy-in or cash prize, and this is not a hand against a top-level poker professional, so take that for what it's worth. However, I can assure you the logic of this type of play and from this hand carries over to all types of poker buy-ins and formats. No matter what level you're playing at, you're still deciphering your opponent's range based on the situation. With that out of the way, let's dive into the hand. Our hand begins in a 90-person sit-and-go with the blinds 80-160 with a 25-chip ante, and we have the table covered with around 14,000 chips or 90 big blinds, and look down at King of Diamonds, 10 of Spades under the gun. Back in the early days of poker, any two Broadway cards were a no-brainer raise. However, I've been disappointed to learn that in today's environment, if you are in even an average cash game or standard tournament situation, hands like this are just simply a fold in early position. However, part of the fun of playing on an app with a monthly fee is you can splash around a bit more and it doesn't cost you any extra money, and the skill level of the average player is much lower. So we decided to take the fun route and min raise to 320. It folds around to the big blind to a player named KJ Positivity, who is a regular on the app, and they call off of a stack that's loosely around 6,000 chips or about 40 big blinds. Already, we are presented with a huge range advantage on the theoretical side of things. We have what's supposed to be the tightest opening range, the under the gun range, versus the loosest possible range the under the gun range can face, a min-raise defense from the big blind. This information is already enough to attack every single board that doesn't totally favor the big blind. The only types of boards it doesn't make sense to attack with this advantage are low card boards like 4, 5, 6, because they can have a huge advantage in the amount of two pairs and straights they can have. Even in a low stakes situation like Club GG, we aren't going to be raising 4-5 offsuit under the gun, whereas that very well may be defended. So there's 920, about 6 big blinds in the pot on a flop of 4 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, and opponent checks to me. This flop contains those middle and low cards, which definitely favors them. Opponent has a huge advantage in the amounts of 8s in their range. However, because it's a paired board, there are much less combinations of made hands they can have in their range. Plus, no good draws are available, they can only have gut shots. So it's best to attack their wide range with a small bet to minimize our risk and still be able to fold out a large percentage of the trash in their range. I bet 303, about 2 big blinds, and opponent calls. For what it's worth, in deeper stack situations against good players, you definitely want to mix in some checking with overpairs in these types of flops, because if you get into a big pot, you're very often going to be in trouble, or at the very least be put into a very difficult spot. There's 1,526, about 10 big blinds in the pot on the turn, which is the Jack of Diamonds, and opponent checks. While overcards, especially Broadway cards, usually favor the aggressor, this situation is a little bit different. The small bet on the flop is a double-edged sword. It's designed to attack the trash hands that don't want to bother seeing a turn. However, it's going to price in a bunch of other hands that might fold to a larger bet. Hands like 3-5 suited or Queen 3 suited are just going to fold to this small bet, but there are a lot of different types of hands that will continue. All pairs and better will continue, obviously, as well as some gut shots, but then the other type of hand that will almost always continue are the 2 overcard / backdoor straight draw combos, especially when they have a backdoor flush draw. Hands like 10-9, Jack-9, Jack-10 are all going to see a turn for a small bet, and this card improves those hands while only moderately improving our range. Yes, our Ace-Jack, King-Jack, Queen-Jack, etc. improve, but even if we have those hands, we're not likely going to want to bet them all the time and play a huge pot, because when we do, we're often going to be against an 8. All that combined with the fact that a plethora of straight draws and backdoor flush draws are now available to bluff with, betting in this spot becomes incredibly disadvantageous, and whenever we get raised, we're going to be in a difficult spot with all our hands that don't have an 8 in them. Since there are a lot of value hands and a lot of bluffs available, we're essentially going to be playing a difficult guessing game. So we want to pot control with our good hands and not attack with our weak hands. That leaves one good option. We check it back. The river is the 8 of hearts, making the board 4 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, Jack of diamonds, 8 of hearts. There is still 1,526, or 10 big blinds in the pot, and our opponent bet 763, about 5 big blinds, which is exactly half pot. There are 2 main components that are present in this hand that you want to look for when considering if you should make a king-high call or not. After you've asked yourself the normal questions you ask in any type of situation, such as what odds am I getting, what does my opponent's range look like, are they the type of player who is even capable of bluffing in this situation, what are my instincts telling me, there are 2 main things you want to be looking for to make a call like this. The first is if all or at least a majority of the draws missed. Here is a perfect example of that. All the flopped gut shots and turn straight draws and flush draws totally bricked out. In a perfect world, it would be better in the theoretical realm to not have a 10 in our hand because it blocks some of the straight draws such as 10-9 and Queen-10 that we want them to have, but blockers aren't everything, and there still are plenty enough bluff combos in their range with the 3-1 pot odds we're getting to consider making the call. In this hand, that alone might be a good enough reason to call, but there is one more key that is extremely important when you are considering making these types of calls, and that key, and the reason I ended up calling, is you want to look for spots where ace high is heavily incentivized to check and take its showdown value as opposed to bluff. Like I mentioned in the turn analysis, this is a spot that we are not going to want to attack with our pairs and with our misses. Therefore, we are going to have a wide range of hands, and that includes a whole smorgasbord of Broadway combos like King-Queen, Queen-10, and, King-10, that ace-high is going to be happy to check it down with. We both have a ton of small pair and high card hands that are just going to be happy to show down and try and win versus each other, so ace-high doesn't get a lot of value in trying to bluff this spot. So what hands are incentivized to bet? There are the main obvious ones. Quad 8s wants to bet, although that is a rare holding with 3/8 on the board, and jacks want to bet to get value, but after that, it starts to get a little sketchy. If you're playing against skilled players or super aggressive image-aware players, or if there are other metagame factors involved such as alcohol, then you can run into some tricky spots and start to level yourself. Sure, it's possible someone may be trying to bet a 4 and try to get you to hero call with ace high, but against most regular players in a spot like this, they're going to be happy just checking those medium strength hands down. So that just leaves the bluffs. Bluffs are heavily incentivized to bet against a turn check because they can't show down on the river, and they're against a perceived weaker range that contains a lot of ace highs, king highs, and queen highs that are likely to fold. So being able to mostly remove ace highs and small pairs from this range, and being up against a rare quads, eights full of jacks, and bluffs that are bound to be plentiful in this wide, passive big blind range, 3-1 is a good enough price to make the call. So I do make the call and get shown quads. I suck at poker. Why are you listening to me? All right, that's it. Have a nice day, everyone. No, I'm just kidding. We get shown the 7 of diamonds, 5 of clubs for a missed flopped gut shot draw and take down a solid pot. Obviously, it's human nature to show examples of something working out in these types of videos to drive the point home, but I'm not doing it to try and make myself look cool. In poker, you have to make the right mathematical plays, fully expecting that sometimes they're going to have the goods and the play won't work. Any beginner type players might be wondering, how did you know he didn't have a jack? I didn't know. He would have played a lot of jacks in this exact same way, and I would have paid him off with king high and felt like a dum-dum for half a second. You have to focus on making the correct long-term play and not worrying about the short-term result. Whether he had ace-8 suited or whether he had 7-5 offsuit, the logic and play here are sound, and I am happy and comfortable with it. And when you go apply this logic and way of thinking in real life, fully expect that sometimes you're going to run into a good hand. But more often than not, when you find yourself in situations like this, it will work out wonderfully, and you too can feel like a genius with your nuts resting comfortably on someone's nice, warm forehead. Take care, everyone. Until the next time.